Hello, everybody. My name is Christina Cass. If you saw the other video, you'll know I recently graduated Delaware Law School this May, and I just finished the bar. So, without further ado, we are going to be going over military rank and structure. So, obviously, what are military ranks? Ranks are a key component in military, whether you're enlisted, an officer, those are the two types that are split into. Ranks determine the hierarchy and how the mission goes, how the everything flows. Kind of the same as I always compare it to an attorney and a paralegal. For the attorney is like the officer and the paralegal is the sergeant. And officers and sergeants are always known as the backbone of the army. Officers cannot do anything without their sergeants. They are the backbone of the army or the military, same as paralegals for the legal field. Um, so cultural norms are, although there are open door policies, everybody knows how that goes, and it is frowned upon and highly discouraged for a junior enlisted officer to bypass their chain of command, and go to their higher ranking. So for example, a private may not skip over their sergeant, go straight to the second lieutenant. You must talk to your sergeant first. However, there are exceptions that apply. Still frowned upon, even with the exceptions, I will say, so keep that in mind. And ranks are directly impacted through the legal authority of UCMJ Article 89, which prohibits disrespect to a commissioned officer. I'm sorry. So say a private has something bad to say to their officer because the officers just be mean or like nasty to them, you can't say it. You must keep your mouth shut. So, yeah. So what are pay grades? Pay grades are the same as ranks, essentially. So each rank has a pay grade to go with it. So, for example, as you see on this sheet, it is a staff sergeant, which is an SSG, is equals a pay grade of an E6. Army second lieutenant, 01. Air Force 01 is a second lieutenant. So you see, they're all different, but they all have their structure about them. And each, no matter what branch you're in, you will have a pay grade assigned to your rank. So commissioned officers, you hear me talking a lot about them. So there are several ways of commissioning as an officer. There are service academies like West Point, the Navy Academy, the Air Force Academy, the big ones that everybody knows. And then there's ROTC, which I'm sure if you went on campus for your undergrad and they had a program, you would see them like running around and doing cadences at 6 o'clock in the morning, or just walking around in uniform, going to class in uniform. So that is called ROTC. You do in ROTC, you do 2 summers, 2 to 3 summers, depending on what your branches, where you're at when you came on. And that's your training. So that's your leadership training. And for the Army, we go to Fort Knox. And the first one is just learning how to be like kind of enlisted almost. It's their form of basic training. And then the second one is when right before you go to commission, you must pass that in order to commission. And it also will determine not there's a lot of things that go into where you commission, what you commission as. Like I commissioned as an MP. How many years you get, like there's a lot that goes into that, but some of it has to do with your performance at these camps. Next is Officer Training School, which is OCS, and that's where either you went to school and they either didn't have an ROTC program, or you do like a nursing and you can go through that, or um, either you were a sergeant and you have your degree, even enlisted, you don't have to be any rank to go to OCS, but you go up against a board and you apply to essentially go to OCS to become an officer from enlisted. Um, Next is your direct commission. So if you wanted to commission right out of law school, you can. They're always looking for medicine, law, engineering, and those are eligible to bypass all the stuff that I just told you about and go direct to commission. Um, and our service transfers and other programs, they're super rare, so we're not even going to touch base on them. But just know they're there. So, Army officer rank terminology. So if you look, these are what the ranks look like. So there is a O1, which is there's obviously I told you there's officer and then there's enlisted. So O1 is considered the E1 of the officer world. So they're considered the babies. They're also known as butter bars. That's what they call them in the military. They're the babies of the officer world. They just commissioned. Some of them have never been in the army a day in their life besides what they did in training. And that's really where they start getting their leadership roles, where they become sizes. And then that goes all the way up to your general flag officers, which are the highest ranking in the military. Those are your generals, like the general of the base, or yeah. And then you have obviously in the middle, you have your field grade officers, which are major through colonel, I'm sorry, major, lieutenant colonel, and colonel. And so here are the Navy officer ranks. I will not speak much on the Navy because I was not in the Navy, but all my family was, so imagine me going Army. But here are these ranks, same, as you can see, same order. They also, they also have their, baby junior officers, and it works your way up like everything else. And then for the Marines, if you notice that the gold bar is just about the same, well, they are the same. Most of the ranks look the same, so they're universal. You can tell what somebody is just by looking at their uniform. So that goes either way, whether it's Navy, Marines, Air Force, Army, even actually, sidebar, police officers, they use the same similar rank structure. So you can tell by looking at their uniform what rank they are. And here's the Air Force. Same thing. Okay. So next we have in the enlisted rank terminology. So we're going to start with warrant officers, which is um the it's instead of being an officer, you can be a warrant officer. So they're just like the enlisted form of officers, and they're known as chief. Super simple. Every warrant officer except WO1 is known as chief. Um, these are their insignias. Note, though, at the bottom, the Air Force does not have warrant officers, so just keep that in mind. And next you have enlisted. Like I said, these are the backbone of the Army, or the military in general. They are the most, when they become sergeants and sergeant majors, they're the most senior ranking enlisted in each unit, which, a lot of them have been in the military for like 20 plus years. They live, eat, breathe, and sleep the military, so like they know what to do. I always was told to seek guidance from them. And I always did. I got along better with sergeants and stuff than other officers because um, I just was looking for the mentorship and I always got the mentorship from them. And now you can kind of see how I'm comparing it to paralegals. They've just been in a bit longer and they kind of know the ins and outs because at reading and seeing is great, but doing are completely different things. So the private is the baby private, and they don't get an insignia. But once you graduate basic, then you move up to E2. And everyone up until E4, I believe, are automatic promotions, we call them. Meaning within like 18 months, you're going to be promoted as long as you don't do anything that gets you in trouble, and get your rank taken away. And then once you go to E5 and you go to sergeant, you go to something called a board where you dress up in your dress blues and they ask you a million and one questions and you never know what's really coming about the army or the military, leadership qualities. It's like an interview, but with a bunch of other high-ranking sergeants. And if you pass that board, then you can get put on the E5 promotable list, it's called, or the sergeant promotable list, depending on what rank you're going to. Um, which is really it's an honor. It's um shows that you're ready for the next step and ready to take on a leadership role. And here are the Navy enlisted. And one thing I will say, each of these ranks, when you rank up, like especially when you start, when you rank up from the automatic promotions to the sergeants, you have to make points, which is like by doing like classes, and then you have to go to like BLC or something like it's just like a basic leadership course, teaching you now how to be a leader because you were never a leader, you were a team member essentially. And here are the Marines. Like you see, you could see the same but a little bit different. Navy's very different, I would say. But Marines are very similar to the Army, and then the Air Force has theirs. The Air Forces are the same, but just like upside down. You can look at it like that. Okay, so chain of command. So I'm gonna walk you through how chain of command works in the military. Keep in mind that as you move through private E1 all the way through E4, it can take approximately 3 to 4 years. Um, And the different positions are team leaders, which are E4 and E5s, usually squad leaders, which are E5 and E6, platoon sergeants, which are like E6, E7, and then first sergeant, and then you go to your officer ranks after that, which are then platoon leader, which is your O1 and O2. And then you go to company command and so on, and it keeps going. So I also meant to point out that there is an exception, the Navy. So this is how a basic team looks. Each team leader, which is usually a sergeant, this is their first act really as a leader in the military. So it's a big deal. So a sergeant and their 3 soldiers, they usually have about 3 soldiers, is known as a team or a fire team. And next, you have the staff sergeant, which or the sergeant first class, either one. Um, Mostly a staff sergeant. This is what their insignia looks like. There are going to be 3 teams within a squad, sometimes 4, depending on the MOS. Like MPs only have 3, but we'll say like 42s, which are HR, usually have 4 sometimes. If they're not designed to a specific unit, like every combat support unit or combat unit has like HR. Every unit has like an HR assigned to them because they're in charge of personnel. The people not you can't do everything. So it's like everything else. It's like a little community within their own. And they're assigned at the battalion level usually. Um, so this is what that looks like. Next is going to be the sergeant first class, and they usually have about 39 people, sometimes more. And this is what it looks like. You can see the teams at the bottom, and now it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Then it goes to the squads, 3 squads, and then that equals the platoon, which becomes he's the platoon leader, it's called. So to be a sergeant first class, you typically have 8 to 10 years of service. So obviously, like I said previously, to make things easier, you just think of it as a huge formation. And this is exactly how they look in everything. Morning PT, officers stand in the back, the sergeants are in the front. It depends. Sometimes for chain obviously we're going to get into that. But just know this is where the second lieutenant, the first commissioned officer of the officer world comes in. They're called platoon leaders, and I told you enlisted often call them butter bars. So they're in charge of everything, including the sergeant. Um, so for instance, like when you commission and become a second lieutenant, all enlisted are supposed to salute officers and stand at the position of attention when you're talking to them. So when you pass an officer, even if you're going to the PX and you're outside, you pass when you must salute them. It's just the customs and courtesies of the military. Doesn't matter what branch you are in. Even if the officer says, don't worry about it. I was one of those officers that'd be like, can you stop? They still do it. You have to do it. It's just part of the customs and courtesies. And it's a sign of respect, essentially. However, for sergeants, when enlisted are talking to them, they do stand at parade rest, it's called. So that's when you see them put their hands behind their back, while talking to them. So again, just part of customs and courtesies. And you can get yelled at. And that could go back to what we were talking about with UCMJ 89 for disrespect. That can be under disrespect because you know what you're supposed to do. You learn that in basic. It depends on, it's really subject. So it really depends on how that person feeling that they want you're gonna get rid of it. So this is how the chain of command works. This is how many, if you look on the right, you can see how many personnel are usually assigned at. You can usually see how many personnel are assigned at each level. And obviously, the higher rank you get, the more you're assigned, which is so stressful. I don't think people talk about it enough because those are people's lives you're in charge of, essentially. Their families trust you. And some people, like, you're getting fresh out of college. Some people have never even had a single responsibility, and now you're being told to lead 42 soldiers into, or seamen or whatever, into combat. It's a lot of pressure. And not only do you have to lead them into combat, but you need to make the plans, the layout to make sure that they safely get there and everything safely executed. So again, that's where the sergeants come in. They are so helpful. They will help you with everything. They will mentor you. They will train you, but you have to let them. But I'm not, this is to say that um, the rank structure in the military it really depends on if you get a great command team. That can make or break your military experience, unfortunately. And for me, that definitely broke my military experience. So being in command, as I talked about, is what is a change of command. I talked about that. It just pretty much it's a ceremony, and it's the army says, okay, effective this date, you're gonna take charge of this company. So now you're in charge of the whole company. You're in charge of the platoon leaders, the sergeants, the enlisted, the support company that comes with it. Like you're in support all the equipment, the logistics, you get it, everything. You're in charge of everything. And that will come down from the big army. And a lot of times as officers, you have to serve a certain amount of time before you can even rank up. So for like you'll have to serve like say platoon leader time and then command time and then staff time, which is like E3 or E4, like logistics essentially. So you have to serve a certain amount of time. And you'll see all of that on really in their records. It'll tell you their DD 214 will absolutely tell you what they retired as or what they got out as. As I spoke in the last video, their discharge or DD 214 is going to be everything. It's going to tell you everything you need to know essentially about a veteran before starting. That's like the basis. So my suggestion is to look at the DD 214 first and then start looking into their medical records. And then I think that also helps you understand maybe why they didn't come forward or why they didn't speak to somebody about their problems. So ranks and social interactions in the military, fraternization is huge. It's big. Officers aren't supposed to talk to enlisted. They're not supposed to go out with enlisted. Sergeants aren't supposed to go with junior enlisted. That's known as fraternization, and it's punishable under UCMJ Article 134. Um, Unfortunately, this is super to me. Um, it's supposed to cause order and good discipline and stop you from having unfair relations, and especially when you can look at, like, say, parole officer and like parolee, kind of the same, like teacher student, you can't have relationships. It's kind of the same in the military, as far as rank wise. The problem is like, if you're, say you're a female and they're already looking to get you out on something, and just say you're a nice person, they can write you up for fraternization, and just claim that you're fraternizing even if you're not. It's super crazy. um so you always have to keep that in mind. When I first got in, my mass sergeant told me, this, excuse my language, I'm going to say that now, I'm so sorry, Professor Morale, but my mass sergeant told me that in the military, and same, I heard that same thing in the police force, so it's really these male dominated fields. You can either be a B word, a female dog, or you can be a hoe, essentially. And I'm so sorry, again, so sorry. But um, it's super sad, but you have to just act like you don't care, talk to them and be unfriendly, even if you're a friendly person, because it could be seen the wrong way. And that is all I have for you guys today. I am so thankful that I was asked to do this. I'm so thankful for you guys doing the Veterans Law Clinic. It was the best time of my life, and as you can tell, I'm still doing it post-graduation because I am not ready to leave. If you have any questions, Professor Morale has my email. Um, you can email me. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am more than happy to sit down and talk about veterans all day and how terrible the VA is. Everybody can tell you that. But this is a very special group of people, and you can learn so much from them, about their resilience and their strength, and the strength that you don't realize they have, because they sit with it, and this is just their life, that they have no choice but to be strong. So always keep that in mind. And thank you for everything. Thank you for listening to me yap for the past two presentations, and I hope you have a great semester wherever you're at in law school, and you have a great time. Bye.